The morning had started like any other for Lena Ray, a 24-year-old waitress with tired eyes and a heart far older than her age. The aroma of fresh coffee filled the diner as the usual regulars trickled in, blue-collar workers, chatty moms, and old couples who came more for nostalgia than food. The Maple and Main Diner was Lena's second home, not because it was cozy or glamorous, but because she had nowhere else to go. Orphaned young, raised in foster care, and now living in a one-room apartment above a pawn shop, Lena had built her life from the ashes of abandonment. The only thing she'd held on to through it all was a single photograph, a small, weathered picture of a beautiful woman in a red dress smiling into the sun. Her mother. "Morning, Lena," called out Denny, the cook, flipping bacon on the griddle. "Morning," she smiled back, tying her apron and slipping the photo gently into the pocket over her heart, like she did every day. It was a ritual, a comfort. The lunch rush was barely beginning when the front door opened and a man stepped inside, a man who didn't fit the usual crowd. He was tall, dressed in an immaculate navy suit, his salt and pepper hair swept back with intention. A luxury watch peeked from beneath his cuff, and leather shoes gleamed under the warm diner lights. Yet, despite the obvious wealth, there was something broken about him. He walked like a man carrying ghosts. He slid into a corner booth without a word. Lena grabbed a menu and approached him. "Hi there. Welcome to Maple and Main. Coffee to start?" The man gave a faint smile. "Yes, black." She nodded, setting the menu down. Their eyes met for a moment. His were stormy gray and oddly familiar. Coming right up, as she turned, he called after her. "Lena, is it?" She paused. "Yeah, how'd you—" "It's on your name tag," he said, smiling politely. "Of course." She laughed awkwardly and returned to the counter, pouring fresh coffee into a mug and trying to shake the strange feeling in her gut. When she brought it to him, she noticed he hadn't even opened the menu. He was staring out the window, lost, in thought. "Rough day?" she asked softly. "Rough life," he replied with a hollow chuckle. Lena wasn't sure why, but she didn't walk away. Maybe it was the sadness in his voice. Maybe it was the way he gripped his coffee like it was the only thing tethering him to the earth. She finally left him to sit, checking on other customers and clearing tables. A few moments later, she noticed his wallet on the booth's edge, about to slide off. "Sir, your wallet," she called, reaching to grab it before it hit the floor, but as her fingers curled around the worn leather, the flap opened slightly. And that's when she saw it. A photograph, tucked into a clear sleeve, worn and folded at the corners. It was her mother. The same picture Lena kept in her apron every single day. Same red dress, same radiant smile, same moment. Her world went still. She gripped the wallet tighter. Her breath hitched. She looked up at the man, who had gone pale the second he saw what she was holding. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Where did you get this?" He didn't answer. "Who is this woman to you?" Her hand trembled as she held up the photo. He swallowed hard, visibly shaken. "That's not possible. Where did you get that photo?" "She's my mother," Lena said, her voice firmer now. "Maria Ray. She died or disappeared when I was 5. I've had this picture all my life. Why do you have the exact same one?" His face lost all color. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. The other customers faded from Lena's awareness. It was just the two of them now, standing on the edge of something enormous and terrifying. "I can explain," he said slowly. "But not here. Not now. Can you meet me after your shift?" Lena stepped back, heart thudding. "Why would I do that?" "Because—" He hesitated, eyes glistening. "Because your mother meant more to me than you can imagine. And because if what you're saying is true, then you deserve to know everything." She stared at him, searching his face for lies, for cracks. "Please," he added, "just meet me here tonight, after closing. Lena didn't respond. She walked away, clutching her apron like armor. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. That night, the diner emptied slowly, the last customer paying his bill as the clock ticked past 10:30 p.m. Lena cleaned the tables with automatic motions, her mind replaying the moment she saw the photo, her photo, in the stranger's wallet. At exactly 11 p.m., the door opened again. He was back. The billionaire. He took a seat at the same booth, his face solemn, his wallet resting beside his folded hands. Lena approached slowly, cautiously. "So, who are you?" "My name is Graham Colt," he said, "and if what I suspect is true, then I'm your father." The words hit her like a wave, pulling her breath from her lungs. Silence fell. He reached into his wallet and gently slid the photograph across the table. "I've kept this for over 20 years. She gave it to me the last night I saw her." Lena's throat tightened. "How do you know my mother?" Graham looked up, pain carved deep into his face. "Because I loved her." The hum of the empty diner buzzed in Lena's ears. Outside, the streetlights cast long shadows across the rain-slick sidewalk, painting streaks of gold across the windows. Inside, everything felt frozen, like time had stopped the moment Graham Colt uttered those impossible words. "I'm your father." Lena couldn't move. She stared at the man across from her, a billionaire, a stranger, and possibly her blood. Her thoughts raced, tangled in disbelief and fear. "You think you can just show up, hand me a story, and fix everything?" she whispered, her voice tight with emotion. "I've lived my whole life wondering where my mother went, who took her, why she left me. And now you're saying you knew her, that you loved her?" Graham didn't flinch. He looked down, eyes misty. "I don't expect you to believe me right away, Lena. I just want to tell you what I should have told someone years ago." She sat down slowly, heart pounding like thunder against her ribs. "I met Maria 25 years ago," he began, voice rough with memory. "She was singing in a jazz lounge downtown. Her voice was magnetic. I was engaged to a woman I didn't love. It was a business arrangement between two elite families, and backing out wasn't an option." Lena listened, barely breathing. "But when I met Maria, something changed. She was everything I wasn't. Free-spirited, kind, and full of life. We started meeting in secret. Dinners, walks by the river, laughing under the stars like teenagers. She used to hum to herself when she cooked spaghetti barefoot. I remember everything. A flicker of a smile crossed his lips, then faded. When she told me she was pregnant, I was terrified. But also, for the first time, I wanted to fight. I wanted to leave my family's empire and start a life with her. A real life." Lena leaned forward, her fingers trembling. "So what happened?" Graham's jaw clenched. "My fiancé's father found out. His name was Alton Royce, a ruthless man who built his empire by crushing anyone who crossed him. He told me if I didn't end things, he'd make Maria disappear. I thought it was just a threat." He paused, the memory visibly painful. "So I ran. I left her a letter, promising I'd come back with a plan, with protection. But when I returned 3 days later, she was gone. Her apartment was empty. No forwarding address, no trace, no goodbye." Lena's voice cracked. "You didn't try harder to find her?" "I did," he said quietly. "I hired private investigators. I searched for years. But Alton Royce had more power than I ever realized. Every lead went cold. And then, a year later, someone told me she'd died in an accident. No funeral. No obituary. Just a cold, final message. She's gone. Move on." Lena felt tears sting her eyes. "I kept that photo," Graham continued, sliding the worn picture toward her again. "It was the only piece of her I had left. Until today. Until I saw you." Lena gripped the photo. She wasn't dead. She raised me until I was 5. Then she vanished, and I was left in foster care. Graham froze. Wait, you knew her? Yes. I remember her singing to me at night. She had a tiny apartment, and she called me her miracle girl. Then one night, she told me to hide in the closet. I heard voices, yelling, and when I came out, she was gone. I never saw her again. They sat in stunned silence. God, Graham whispered. He took her. He really took her. Lena wiped her tears with the back of her hand. Why? Why would someone do that? Because people like Alton Royce don't lose, not in business, not in love, not even in legacy. If he thought Maria, or her child, would ruin his daughter's image, he would have erased you both without blinking. Lena stared at the photo. So all this time, I thought I was unwanted. But you were looking for me? I was. And I failed. His voice cracked. I failed her. I failed you. Her chest ached with so many emotions at once. Anger, grief, shock, and the faintest sliver of something that felt like hope. Just then, a noise from outside broke the silence. Lena glanced toward the window. A sleek black car was parked across the street, engine idling. No one got out. No one moved. Graham followed her gaze and stiffened. I was followed tonight, he murmured. What? Lena said, startled. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded note. This was slipped into my driver's hand this morning. Lena took it and unfolded the paper. One sentence was scrawled in red ink. Stop looking for ghosts, Graham, or you'll join them. Her hands shook. Who? I don't know, but it's someone who doesn't want Maria's past uncovered, and now they know about you. Lena's stomach twisted. Before she could speak, a knock came at the door, sharp and deliberate. She froze. Graham stood. Don't answer it. The knock came again. 3 slow taps, then silence. Lena's heart pounded, but after a minute, whoever it was walked away. The car across the street started its engine and disappeared into the night. Graham sat back down, jaw clenched. This isn't just a family tragedy anymore. Someone is still watching, still protecting the lies. Lena looked at him, finally, seeing not just a billionaire, but a father haunted by choices he couldn't undo. So what do we do? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. He met her eyes. We find out what really happened to Maria. And we make sure the people who buried her story don't bury yours too. Lena couldn't sleep. The walls of her tiny apartment felt like they were closing in, suffocating her with memories, questions, and the echo of Graham Colt's trembling voice. I loved your mother, Lena. I never knew she had you, until now. And someone didn't want me to know. The photo she'd found, the same one she used to stare at as a child, was now irrefutable proof. Her mother wasn't a runaway. She wasn't some mystery woman from Graham's past. She was everything. And somehow she'd vanished from the face of the earth. Lena sat at the edge of her bed, gripping the locket that had once belonged to Maria Hart. Her mother. Her hero. Her ghost. It didn't make sense. Why would a billionaire like Graham Colt lie? Why would he carry around a torn photo of a woman he'd supposedly forgotten? And why now? As she stared out the window into the dark city, a sleek black car slowed at the corner of her street. It paused, headlights off, then crept away. Her skin prickled. Someone was watching her. The next morning, Lena met Graham in a secure downtown lounge, the kind of place ordinary people like her weren't supposed to know about. The room was windowless, dimly lit, lined with vintage books and velvet chairs. 2 bodyguards flanked the door. Graham sat with tired eyes and a folder in his hand. I didn't sleep either, he admitted. And I didn't come empty-handed. He slid the folder across the table. I hired a private team, some of the best. They found traces, pieces of Maria's last known steps. Look at this. Lena opened the folder. Inside were surveillance. Photos dated March 11th, 2005. The same day her mother disappeared. In one, Maria walked briskly out of a building. In another, she entered a black sedan. She looked scared. Her head was turned, eyes wide. That car belongs to a private security firm owned by Alton Royce, Graham said, his voice bitter. Your mother worked as a singer at one of his clubs. Royce hated our relationship. When she left the spotlight, she vanished. Now I know why. Lena's voice cracked. He had her taken. I believe so. Royce died 5 years ago. But his people? Some of them still operate under the radar. And someone doesn't want us digging. Lena remembered the anonymous note. Stop looking for ghosts, Graham, or you'll join them. How far would Royce have gone? She asked. Graham's jaw clenched. He was a powerful man with a lot to lose, and he was obsessed with control. If Maria threatened that... She did, Lena whispered. She threatened him by loving you. They left the city that afternoon, heading for the Royce estate, and abandoned property 40 miles north, locked behind rusted gates and silent woods. The air was thick with moss and memory. Trees bowed toward the earth, as if mourning. They passed through the crumbling mansion's halls, flashlight beams cutting through the dust. Lena's breath caught with every creak. Paint peeled from the walls. The grand piano in the center atrium sat broken, its keys like crooked teeth. Then Graham found the sealed door, steel, bolted. It took one of his guards 20 minutes to force it open. What they found inside wasn't horror. It was heartbreak. A small, windowless room. A thin mattress on the floor, a single chair, a cracked mirror. On the wall, photos of Lena as a baby, a tattered dress draped over a hanger, and a journal. Lena picked up the journal with trembling fingers. Pages had been torn out, but a few entries remained. One entry read, "They keep me here. I don't know where I am, but I sing to myself every night. I dream of Lena's laughter. I hope she's safe. I hope Graham still remembers us." Her throat tightened. She was alive. For a while. She was here. Graham pressed his hand against the wall. She waited for me, and I never came. A soft, shuddering breath escaped him. God forgive me. Lena sank to the floor, holding the locket close. She never gave up on us. Suddenly, a loud crash came from behind them. One of the guards fell, struck from behind. From the shadows, 3 masked men stepped forward, all dressed in black, armed. Their voices were calm but chilling. "Put the journal down," one barked. Graham stood between them and Lena. "You're making a mistake." "We warned you," the lead man said. "Now this ends here." Just as the tension peaked, red and blue lights flashed through the shattered windows. FBI agents swarmed in. Shouts, scuffles, shots fired into the air. Lena ducked as chaos erupted. Within moments, the masked intruders were subdued, cuffed, and dragged. Out. One screamed as he was taken. "You should have stayed buried with her." Silence returned to the room. Lena looked at Graham. "Did you know they'd come?" "I suspected," he said, brushing dust off his coat. "That's why I tipped off. The FBI this morning. We needed to catch them in the act. We needed proof." Over the next week, the story exploded across every news outlet in the country. Waitress uncovers mother's imprisonment in Billionaire cover-up. Dead magnate Alton Royce implicated in 20-year abduction scandal. Billionaire heir and secret daughter reunited after hidden past is exposed. Lena, once just a young woman refilling coffee cups and wiping down tables, was now at the center of a national reckoning. She sat in the FBI's office, going through hours of testimony. They gave her access to archived files. Royce's name appeared in several redacted reports. Suspicion of kidnapping, illegal detainments, financial coercion. But he'd always been untouchable. Until now. Graham stood beside her every step of the way, not as a billionaire, not as a businessman, but as her father. He offered her anything she wanted, a house, a car, an inheritance. But Lena only asked for one thing, justice for my mom, and for the world to remember who she was. On the day of the press conference, Lena wore her Waitress uniform, a soft blue t-shirt, fitted jeans, her apron, and the cap she always tucked her hair beneath. She wanted people to see her as she was, not a headline, not a millionaire's daughter, but the girl who'd lived this pain. She stood at the steps of the courthouse, cameras flashing. Graham stood beside her, his hand gently on her shoulder. "My name is Lena Hart," she began, voice shaking. "All my life I thought my mother left me. But she didn't. She was taken, hidden, locked away because someone wanted her love buried." She held up the locket. Maria Hart was a singer, a mother, and a fighter. She spent her final days dreaming of me, and I want the world to know she was never forgotten. Tears slipped down her cheeks, but she didn't wipe them away. She stood tall, unbreakable. That night, Lena returned to the diner. She walked through the doors quietly. The booths were empty. The same flickering neon sign buzzed overhead. The same bell rang as the door closed, behind her. She moved toward the back booth, the booth where it all began, where Graham had left his wallet, where fate had left her a torn photograph and a truth too big to ignore. She slid into the seat and sat in silence. A waitress walked over and smiled awkwardly. "You're her, right? From the news?" Lena smiled faintly. "Yeah, but I used to be you." The waitress laughed. "That's crazy." Lena looked around. Everything looked the same, but she was different. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a pen. On a napkin, she wrote one sentence. "The truth always finds a way." Then she placed it under the sugar jar, just like someone had left a photo under that same jar for her. As she stepped outside, Graham was waiting by the car. "Ready for what's next?" he asked. Lena looked up at the night sky. No longer heavy, no longer dark. For the first time in her life, the stars seemed clear. She smiled. More than ever. They drove off into the night, father and daughter no longer haunted by the past, but finally free to write their future together.